HBO Max is one of those streaming services that I personally find really hard to figure out. Netflix has a lot of content and a lot of relatively low quality content. There is some really good stuff there, of course, and I do love their documentaries, which by no means are easy to watch, but just the sheer amount of romance movies and dramas, which often have a low production value and a very straightforward storyline, does qualify the overall catalog of Netflix to be a bit less quality focused and more quantity focused. Disney Plus pulls you in with big brands and names like Marvel and Star Wars, and of course the movies from Disney itself, as well as Pixar. I feel like on Disney Plus, you are less likely to find a hidden gem, but its worth comes from always being able to return to some of those childhood favorites, and thanks to Marvel, also some more recent movies which just make you feel comfortable and at home. So what does HBO Max have? Yes, it has some big ones like Game of Thrones and Euphoria, but what else? Honestly, I have found some of my favorite shows on HBO Max, but a lot of the time I had never even heard of the show before watching it and really had no idea just how amazing the show was going to be. To me, HBO Max for sure is the streaming service with the most surprising content. While it is not the one I turn to when I want to find a sure thing that will entertain me, it has definitely paid off for me. So, today, I would like to introduce you to some of my favorite underrated HBO shows. And with that, I welcome you to Rebel Culture. And as I have to do, as dictated by the laws of YouTube, I have to ask you to please like and subscribe. I know it gets repetitive, but your support really means so much to us. So, here we go. The first show I want to introduce you to is Patria. The main reason I think this show hasn't gotten more acclaim is because it's in Spanish and Basque, so a lot of people are put off by the idea of having to read subtitles the entire time, or if not, listen to a dubbed version, which just never is the same. I actually would have accepted these arguments if Netflix hasn't shown to the world that people are in fact willing to watch content in other languages, like they did with Money Heist, Dark, Elite, or Squid Game. Offer people something intriguing enough and actually show it to them, and they will watch it. So far, I haven't seen this on HBO. All shows I get suggested are either in English or Spanish, both languages which they know I know, but I am curious what other content they might have in other languages. Anyways, what is Patria all about to earn itself the top spot on my underrated HBO shows list? Well, it's a miniseries from 2020 that tells the story of two families and how the terrorism of ETA affected them. It is political, it is dramatic, it is heartbreaking. It's a wonderful story told in a magnificent way, but it is more than just that. It is more than just a story. It's history. ETA was a terrorist group that wanted the independence of the Basque Country, a region in the north of Spain. It was officially disbanded in 2018, but the scars that they left on the country are far from healed. As is inherent to internal conflict, they pit neighbor against neighbor and brother against brother. This is exactly the development we see in the show, as the main family is cast out from the community of the town that they live in for being more skeptical towards ETA. Their business is destroyed, the community ignores them at best, actively berates them at the worst, and even their closest friends turn away from them. This all leads up to the tragic death of the father of a family, with the mystery lingering whether the son of their friends was the murderer. The show is gripping and heart-wrenching. You feel for the family watching the injustices perpetrated on them for not following a terrorist group. You don't need to have grown up in Spain to understand the pain. You don't need to know anything about ETA to understand the horror. All you need to do is to watch the show. Before moving on to the next one, remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy our content and want to support our efforts on this channel. The second show I want to advocate for today is His Dark Materials. I was so excited when I saw this show because eons ago, back in 2007, there was this movie called The Golden Compass, which was based on the same trilogy as the show His Dark Materials. My parents next to never took me to the cinema, so going to the cinema was huge for 11-year-old me anyways, and this movie made it even so much more special as it sucked me in with its magic. Years later, I would think of the movie, once in a while even rewatching it, wondering how the story might continue. Yes, I could have just read the books, but turns out the local bookstore didn't have it, and while it may have been the 2000s for the rest of the world where Amazon already existed, well, for me it didn't. So I was out of luck until 12 years later when the first season of the show was finally released. And even 12 years later, the story just enveloped me with its magic. It starts with a girl called Lyra, who lives in a world where your soul is your demon, and he or she lives outside of your body in the form of an animal. Your own constant companion, your voice of reason, your source of strength, but one you can actually talk to. The concept itself is amazing, and probably the fantasy of every child. I mean, how cool would it be to have your own pet as your demon as part of yourself? Anyways, the story, while sounding very innocent, takes a dark turn as children are kidnapped, brought to the north, and have their demons, so literally their souls, cut away from them. Why would anyone do such a horrible thing, you ask? Religion. Didn't expect that, did you? Well, in the beginning, the story seems to be about an adventurous child. It soon goes on about far deeper topics. Religious versus science, belief versus knowledge, control versus freedom. And Lyra soon becomes more than just a child. She becomes Eve. Yes, that Eve from the Garden of Eden. The Eve that was tempted by the serpent to taste the fruit of knowledge. The Eve that was original sin. The Eve that brought pain and suffering to the world. Well, turns out Eve did exactly the right thing by eating that apple. Whether you're an adult, a teenager, or have kids of your own, I can't imagine a time where watching this show wouldn't be intriguing. This leaves us with the last HBO show for today, which deserves far greater recognition than it has so far. And that is Bored to Death. It has such a different feeling than the other two shows, so it's the perfect addition to this trio. The show aired from 2009 to 2011 and was scarcely watched in its early years, so maybe we can revive it a little. It follows the story of a failed novelist turned private detective, Jonathan. He is aided by his best friend Ray and father figure George. While Jonathan changes his character, leading a somewhat double life between the author he wants to be and the new side hustle as private detective, he shifts his personality, something that goes pretty much unnoticed by his two associates. They are along for the ride, for the quirky cases and plenty of odd scenarios that they find themselves in. Being a novelist himself, Jonathan uses tropes that private eyes and spy novels use. These are clearly juxtaposed by the real world, making the three characters stick out while investigating their cases. This fits so well with the fact that the author of the show is called Jonathan Ames, as is the main character, who, however, is played by Jason Schwartzman, co-creator of the show. The muddling of lines between reality and show is clearly a topic that they're exploring throughout its creation. But don't think that this means the show is serious or that somehow it's taking itself too seriously. It is clearly a comedy, and it is going all out in that. With slapstick humor and noir comedy elements, it mixes comedic styles left and right. But as always is the case in comedy, describing it kills it, so I won't even try, and I'll just trust that you'll check out the show yourselves. Thank you so much for watching Rebel Culture. I really hope you might check out some of these shows I talked about today. They really deserve it, and all of them being so different is so fantastic. Anyways, if you enjoy our content, then please do make sure to like and subscribe. We're such a young channel and are growing, so every single bit that you give us really means so much. And while you're at it, why not check out some more of our content right now? See you soon here in Rebel Culture.